here we go. American meat. Well, you know it's gonna be a horror story talking about American meat.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-7115. Object Class: Neutralized. Special Containment Procedures.
Why is this so
Paper
loud?
records relating to SCP-7115 are currently stored in the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Unusual Incidents Unit Secure Archive. Physical remains relating to SCP-7115 are to be stored in a standard biological containment locker per the recommendation of the current HMCL supervisor of Site-187. SCP-7115 is presumed to have been neutralized. Despite this, sightings of SCP-7115-A or 7115-1 entities are to be treated as a high-priority threat.
District of Chicago.
Description: SCP-7115 designates a series of anomalous phenomena which occurred in 1908 at the Molson & Company meatpacking plant, a subsection of the meatpacking district in Chicago. The source of said phenomena is believed to have been an entity designated SCP-7115-A, which at the time operated under the identity of Antanas Remus, a Lithuanian immigrant and employee of the Molson & Company plant. Addendum 7115-1. Background: Molson & Company, founded in 1863 and dissolved in 1909, was a pork farming and packing firm with its largest meatpacking plant located in Chicago's Union Stockyards. The company primarily farmed and slaughtered hogs, but also manufactured products such as soap from slaughterhouse byproducts, doing so in factories adjacent to its main plant. Prior to the occurrence of SCP-7115, the president of the company was Henry Hughes, or H.H. Molson. Following the publication of Upton Sinclair's 1906 novel, The Jungle, which sought to advocate for socialism by portraying the exploitation of immigrants by the Chicago meatpacking industry, and legislative action against...
Especially not back then, where you goddamn commie. Even now, like you... even though unions were way more people in unions back then than there are now, but it's like you talking about some socialism, advocating for socialism, or you about to get blacklisted from everything.
It's the unsanitary nature of contemporary meatpacking. Molson grew concerned that negative publicity, legislative action, and unionization would affect his profits.
Yeah.
To this end, Molson influenced Harold Leslie, the editor of the Chicago Daily Courier newspaper, to publish articles opposing reform in the meatpacking industry. This culminated in a letter from Molson to Leslie, undated but likely sent in August of 1908, suggesting that Leslie sent a reporter to the Molson plant disguised as an employee, much like Sinclair himself did in order to research the jungle, with the aim of producing a first-hand account of the meatpacking industry, which would present the Molson Corporation positively and contradict Sinclair's book. Leslie recommended Sherman Hayes, a young reporter fluent in a number of the languages spoken by the immigrant workers, for the task. He was to lodge with Jelena and Thomas Petrulis, employees of Molson & Company who had previously spied on trade unionists on behalf of the corporation. Addendum 7115-2. Sherman Hayes' Journal. Hayes' stay at the plant from September to December of 1908 provides the clearest first-hand account of SCP-7115. Relevant excerpts from Hayes' notebook and journals are provided below.
The pea house, or rather shack, is shared between them, and 3 ragged chickens which they feed on kitchen scraps. I bunk in the main room by the stove, under the story that I'm a distant cousin come here to work. They have given me their warmest blanket. I would more happily take it if they did not go on about how it was the best they had, how they were at the service of the Molson Corporation, and I, bowing and scraping like coolies. To do. Notes regarding work tomorrow. Street sketches of workers plus area. Though less than luxurious, the inhabitants have constructed a neighborhood brimming with rustic, peasant conviviality. Praying I will hear some news of Kozlowski here. A story that would make my fame, though God only knows if I will gain anything here except some exotic skin disease.
I like that he paused when he said rustic. He's like peasant. Like peasant is better than just saying rustic or something. Like, at least that's what it sounds
Much
like
to praise regarding plant design efficiency. Consult plans for clearer description when returning to office and administration. I'm glad to hold a pen after hacking at pig carcasses for a day. Foreman was informed regarding my presence. Did not hound me too hard as he did other workers. Even so, I'm exhausted at working at half their pace. Even with a lighter workload, I'm exhausted. A thing I cannot find a kind of description of is...
That's one thing. You want to see some people work, or you want to feel like you half-assing it, even when you going all out. Just work with some migrants. Work with some migrant workers. You just be like, you're like, God damn, like, and you know they be getting paid less than you, but they be like, hey, I gotta work hard because they know they can be. One thing, they don't have the protections that like Americans have, so they can be fired much easier. So they like, well, they're in a situation where like I gotta push myself even. I gotta push even harder because if you fall, it's funny. It's kind of reminiscent. You know, I ain't gonna go there. I was gonna say I ain't gonna go there.
The smell. Sweat and flesh piled on flesh and pig shit, and steam from boiling lard still clinging to my face.
Jeez.
Hungry, too. So close to pound after pound of meat with nothing but thin soup for meals.
I know he
Not
ain't
that
got
I
paid
would
enough
want
to do this
pork,
shit.
knowing how the meat practically steams in its own sweat and slime for hours. The socialistic voices of the press may argue for unionization and indolence, but the plant workers' actions demonstrate otherwise. Their industriousness is commendable. Twice in one day, I saw workers cut themselves butchering the slaughtered pigs, yet grit their teeth manfully and go on working. Would that more in this country had their grit and sufferance. Strange things seen. One man...
Yeah, just yeah, don't stop working. Oh, you stumped you like broke your toe. Yeah, you just get up and you just keep going. you keep going to help this man stay a millionaire while you're barely scraping by, or you might not even be. You couldn't probably sustain yourself off that one job. You'd have to get multiple jobs, but just grit your teeth and just man it out. And because one day you'll be that millionaire, even though you'll never be that. But that's what they tell you, and that's what people tell themselves.
Nikolai lost a finger to an errant cunt. But a wizened worker, long prophet's beard, vaguely like Whitman, grasped the finger and rejoined it to the stump, leaving not even a scar. Some parlor trick there.
Wait, what?
Two workers, boys, were crushed under a section of the factory's roof, which caved in this morning.
Oh, child labor.
From gossip, seems to have been an event which has occurred before. Pillars and supports widely known to be damaged. Previous deaths not reported in the Courier as far as I know. Regrettably, not even factories as modern and well-regulated as the Molson plant are.
Just grit your teeth. Those kids, they were gritting their teeth the whole time as they were being crushed to death. Like, I've had people say that about me, like I work, because I try to always do things to the best of my ability. And you're like, oh, I wish more people have more work ethic like that. I'm like, well, I mean, you keep paying me, right? And I will. You know, I don't have any loyalty to any of them. I am a hoe who gets paid. I can take the highest bidder. Whoever pays me the most gets the most of my labor, or the best of my labor. It always trip me out when companies be like saying that, like, oh, you don't have any company like loyalty because you move jobs. You move like 3 jobs in like a 2-year time span. Fuck you. Like, yeah, because I was offered better money and other jobs too far away, or they didn't promote me to this other job, or I had this job title, which I was supposed to get paid more money, but they kept me in a different position where I didn't get that money because I couldn't get the training. And each time I kept telling, hey, I need to get this training because I was hired for that job. Like, the whole reason I wanted a job because I got paid better. You hire me for it, let me do the training. I said, why? And I said, it's based on seniority. Why are people skipping over me? New people coming in here. And some other guys that was like that too. And one of the other guys, he was saying that, it was because we were black. I was trying not to make it about race, but seeing that the people they had skipped in front of us were all like white guys, and then they didn't put us in the training until they put one of the black guy, because he complained to the union rep because he was like, I got seniority over these people, why are they going in front of me? He didn't say nothing about a race day to them. He was saying that to me, but I did notice it. But I said, I said, maybe I'm just looking at it that way. That's probably not it. Until some new people came in within the first couple weeks, they already in the training class, and they were all white, and I'm just like, because even some other guy, it was a Asian guy, I forget what his nationality was. I mean, I know he's American, but I mean, like, I don't know if he was Chinese or Japanese, something like that. But it's an Asian guy, and I know it was a few Hispanics and a few women. Actually, it was quite a few. It was like 5 women that was trying to get that actually had that job position too. And I'm like, yeah, they say y'all need people, so clearly y'all gave us a job because you need people. Why are we not getting the training?
Immune to accidents. Even in grief, workers have a rustic dignity working here, I witnessed.
Yeah, reattaching
Delena
fingers
says
and
their names
shit.
were Tavas and Ritus. Brothers. The old man is called Antanas.
Just throw him in the pot.
Shaman or unofficial leader. Better English than all other workers. Voice like a preacher. He was consoling Tavis and Ritus' mother when Thomas and I arrived to work. Word amongst workers, as relayed by Thomas, the others do not speak in my presence, that we are to go to a meeting spot outside workers' shantytown tonight. Union meeting, perhaps? Must write down as proof it was all real. We met in the old man's house, bigger than the rest with a spread of their country's food laid out. Thomas and I arrived late, his wife tired. He was already speaking to the crowd, telling them not to grieve these deaths nor the other injuries their work had caused. A massed outcry in the congregation which showed their injuries furiously. Stumps of hands, skin peeling from disease, children who were half bone. God, the stench as they shouted and raved. The old man quieted them. Grief is of no use, my friends. Tears will not feed or clothe us.
That's true.
Does your pain make you want death? I will show you how pain will save you. I thought he was a socialist and was busy thinking of words which would best ridicule his claims when he drew the boy's mother from the crowd. She was sobbing, her dress filthy from working in the fertilizer plant. He produced a knife, the long, lightly curved sword used to cut swine open. You were willing to bleed for Molson once. Now you will bleed for all of us. And with a slash, he cut her belly open, top to bottom, through the skirt. And as the crowd surged forward, and also back in horror, he reached in and parted the flesh. And out of the bleeding guts, pulled
A piglet.
forth a writhing piglet. The crowd quieted as the woman sobbed quietly.
Because I'd read ahead and I was like, piglet. That's I actually read past it, and I was like, the crowd quiet. I was, wait a minute. I went back and was like, did you see? He cut her stomach open, and a writhing piglet came. He pulled out a pig. I'd have been lying. I thought it was gonna be some like, soylent green is people or something, like they putting people in there. But this is, I should have realized that can't be it. This is SCP. We gotta do some sick shit. Yeah, like he sliced her belly open and pulls out a piglet, and she seems kind of just like she's crying, but she was already crying because her children are dead. And like, it's almost like these people like have this culture, and they all just went and worked at the same plant. Well, I guess what do they call this? Like when they slaughter animals, slaughterhouse. Yeah. But I guess they treat the meat and stuff like that as well. Also there as well. But it's like all on with that, and they have this, I don't know, religion or whatever, but it's kind of morphed into this thing where it's like, well, we have to just get over it and just work because, whining about it is not going to put food on the table. So, yeah, people holding up their arms. He's holding up stumps, so then lost whole hands. Like, people, like, skin is being eaten away from disease. Like, I'm sorry. You can't be like, I'm working in this fucking place and you like, hey, stop whining about your hand has been cut off. Why didn't they reattach? They do reattach his fingers.
And he reached in, and this time a fat sow, squealing and thrashing. Trotters tangled in and kicking her intestines, was dragged out on the ground. Elizabeta, don't cry. You bled once for a rich man, now bleed for us all, painlessly. And let your blood bring life. And with those words we all fell to and slaughtered the pigs, as we had learned to do. The workmen are friendlier now, having seen me at that meeting. I was invited to sit with them. Even tried their lunch of black bread and cheese.
Black bread and cheese? What? Moldy bread, that's what it is. Man, I don't get how he saw that, he just like, man, if I saw some shit like that, like I'm an investigative reporter and I'm undercover working here and I see that shit, them slice open a woman, he pulled out a piglet and a sow and then they slaughtered it and ate it, I'd have been like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I'd like, okay, that's the story. Who the fuck cares about doing some puff piece on this guy about his hatred of unions and stuff and socialism? Like, this motherfucker sliced open a woman and pulled out a piglet and a sow and they ate it, and I guess she was fine because he told her he's like bleeding and painlessly and let your blood bring life. So I was like, I'm guessing she didn't die, because it seemed like these people get gravely injured but they don't die, except unless I guess like your whole body is crushed like those two kids, unless they gonna come back later or something.
And compared war stories of the abuse the foreman had made us suffer. They used to look at me with suspicion, and for a moment I rejoiced I was getting closer to these people. One even told me about how Kozowski and his anarchists were stockpiling dynamite in this shanty to play at being Gazalgas, clouting me around the head and laughing as if we had worked and shared jokes for decades. But I know the blood and guts business which earned me this acceptance. And the taste of raw pork is still slick on my tongue.
Are you eating raw pork?
The old man must know I do not belong. My face too clean cut, and demeanor too inquisitive. What will I taste like? Two men who were friends of Thomas volunteered to be cut open this time, saying it was better to die to feed their families than waste away. Those workers being rheumatic from working in the chilling rooms.
Okay, so they're eating.
Shivering even when they stood by the old man's stove and declared their willingness. He charged them to bring a third victim, and this night we gathered to see them kneel beside two others. One, the loathed foreman. The other, from what gossip in the room was saying, his son.
Both
tied hand and foot. They jeered. I jeered with them, and cursed the man and his son too, and spat on the boy's face as we paraded him through the meeting room, And they were all cut open, and black-bristled hogs rose up out of their gashed open guts. We feasted on the meat, and the 4 of them, still living, crying and praying as their guts tangled down to their knees, were dragged away by some of the man's acolytes. Plans to do more.
Okay,
Others
people
offered
are
themselves as sacrifices, making plans to hunt down others. Strangers and beggars.
What?
Not even the staff at the plant to be brought as part of the feast. The scream of the boy as a hog, twice his size, reared its head from his stomach and ripped the boy's flank apart with its tusks. Something had gnawed up the peased chickens. Screaming pigs and roaring machines by day. Screaming men and women and children by night. The old man must know I'm a spy.
Damn.
We are all just meat.
These notes were deposited in a P.O. box used by Hayes, discovered following the investigation of the events surrounding the Molson factory.
Hayes was never seen again.
Addendum 7115-3. SCP-7115-1. SCP-7115-1 designates a population of organisms observed in the meatpacking district in the autumn and winter of 1908. Contemporary autopsies indicate that recovered corpses were humanoid, but exhibited haphazard and asymmetrical mutations, rendering them superficially porcine in appearance. While SCP-7115-1 varied visually, all specimens possessed thickened epidermises covered in bristles, elongated faces terminating in boar-like snouts, and teeth elongated into multiple sets of tusks. Genetic testing of recovered skeletal material indicate that SCP-7115-1 shared genetic material with baseline Homo sapiens, with traces of Sus domesticus, Sus scrofa, and Metridio coeris. SCP-7115-1 were reported roaming the meatpacking district, though sightings in other areas of Chicago were also recorded, usually operating nocturnally in order to abduct civilians. While records from this period are fragmentary due to a distrust of law enforcement amongst the immigrant population and the dismissal of sightings as the result of superstition, it is believed that as many as 50 individuals may have been abducted in this phase of activity. Addendum 7115-4. Interview 2807-1909. On 15/12/1908, the Irregular Threats Unit of the Bureau of Investigation was notified of a horde of pigs and pigmen rampaging in Chicago's meatpacking district. Reports described hundreds of SCP-7115-1 instances assaulting civilians indiscriminately and bisecting their stomachs with knives or their hands.
Oh, wow.
A combination of non-anomalous swine and SCP-7115-1 instances would then proceed to emerge from the stomachs of the victims. It is estimated that more than 200 individuals died in this phase of activity.
They don't give a shit. They just went out and just started attacking people and cutting their stomachs open, and pigs start coming out. Like that's some crazy. That's some shit that you have PTSD from. You saw somebody slice somebody open, and a fucking pig came out of their bodies. That even they was talking about, like they sliced that boy open, and he said a pig came out that was he said twice the size of the boy or something like that. So that don't even like don't even make sense. Like this thing comes out of something that, but the thing is bigger than the person it was in. How did I imagine? I see why this is neutralized. Like they don't give a fuck. They just go around just attacking people, and for some reason, is it like the knives that's causing this? Because it's these other random people just near the plant, or I guess near this shanty town or whatever. They just slicing people open and pigs coming out. Like I'm assuming it must be the knives. Like that does something when it cuts people open and makes a pig come out.
Due to the lack of manpower and organization of the then fledgling bureau, attempts to liaise with the Chicago police force were haphazard. Ultimately, the impact of the Bureau and law enforcement on containing the anomaly was minimal, as all SCP-7115-1 entities and anomalously produced swine ceased life function in the morning of 17/12/1908, following the collapse of a section of the roof of the Molson & Company meatpacking plant.
Where's this dude from?
The clearest first-hand report of why this anomalous phenomenon ceased was provided by Jelena Petrula.
I'm talking about the who's talking, I guess, make this video, because isn't that the way they do that in Europe or something? They write the day, month, year, because we do month, day, year here. I have written it this way on, like, when they ask you the date on, like, bank statements and stuff. They were like, oh, not bank statements, but like documents, and as they put day, month, year instead of month, day, year. Well, I guess I just assumed he's American, because for the most part we do month, day, year.
Who was found unconscious and severely injured in the ruined Molson factory and taken into the Bureau's custody. Following a lengthy recovery, she was permitted to give her testimony in Lithuanian, which was recorded and translated. Her testimony is excerpted below.
The company told us to give the boy, the journalist, a place in our house, or they would make public the fact that we had informed on Jack Zemer and Kintatus. With that hanging over our heads, we were hardly concerned with what Antonos was doing. The old man did odd jobs around the
He
factory.
said they knew.
He was not related to any of us. But we all called him grandfather because he was gentle and knew remedies for all of our ills. How to stretch our wages.
Okay, he's the
or heal a
anomaly.
sick child. Or mourn the ones we lost. I didn't go to the first meeting. I had intended to mourn with them. Elizabeta was a good friend of mine, but that night I was sick with a fever. When Thomas and the boy came back with haunches of raw pork in a basket, I thought I was dreaming. I tasted it, and it was the finest, fattiest meat I had eaten. Certainly not the worm-ridden stuff Molson sold. My fever passed in days. We didn't have the luxury of asking too many questions.
The healing
Food
properties.
was always short, and the ones who died willingly. The men went to work with a new shine of health in their faces, and the children did not go to bed hungry for the first time in years. Then we began hearing that the men were killing workers who had not chosen to go to their deaths, or strangers or company staff. There was more meat than ever for all of us. And then the boy came to me after the chickens had been mauled to death one night. He told me that he had hidden his nuts away in case something happened to him that night. I will confront him, he said, in his stilted schoolbook Lithuanian. I need to understand, or stop it if that is possible. He then apologized if he had caused us any harm or offense, and said that he had only ever wanted to help the workers at the plant, so sincerely that I had no choice but to smile and thank him. There was a gauntness in his face, even though he, like us, had grown fat on meat. He vanished that night.
I figured
Thomas warned me.
He said he put his
Told me that
notes.
what had happened to the boy would happen to me.
He sent his notes, so
But
I
I
was like,
did
he
it.
definitely was died.
I hid my carving knife in my shawl and went to the old man's house. He was alone, wrapped in an old fur, cutting slices from a piece of cured pork fat. My favorite treat when I was young, eaten on bread drizzled with a few drops of molasses.
Damn, they only eat pork?
But when he
Shit.
offered me it, my stomach turned, and I sat down without speaking. You're afraid, aren't you, of my children, who have learned to walk on their hind legs and forage for their own meals now? He ate, and went on talking. His accent had always been strange, sounding like it was from no place and every place. I'm sorry about your chickens. You must have been fond of them. When the world was young, I preached to the people of better lives, but the world disabused me of that notion. Do you know what this country has taught me? It is that all of you can be made to willingly line up to be chopped up into meat. Every belief is just a machine. People go in one end, and bodies come out the other. Do you really think that the unions, and the socialists, and the Kazuski's anarchist bombers will save you from being slaughtered for some cause or another? No. It is the highest and noblest lesson of this great nation that all of you will choose to die and suffer, to become nothing but cuts of American meat.
Oh, name
And
drop.
there is only one escape from this system. And this is? I asked him. I remember that the knife slipped from my shawl and clattered to the ground, but I did not pick it up. To be the one eating the meat. He motioned to his plate of cured pork fat. This pig, well, this was a well-bred one, from a good family. A little piglet who knew his letters. You knew him well. Won't you have a bite? I have some molasses to sweeten the taste. And I cannot describe how it happened.
It's still disgusting eating raw.
As if a light suddenly shone against his face. I saw what he was. Something monstrously old. A weeping red symbol was carved on his forehead.
Oh,
And when he stretched his hands out, white staring eyes were set in his palms. I shrieked and ran. All he did was laugh
staring
and
eyes.
snort and snuffle like a pig.
Kind of reminds me of he said white staring eyes were set in his palms. That made me think of the labyrinth, where that thing was eating those fairies and stuff. I think didn't he eat people too? But he had eyes in his hand, because he would do like this to see who put the eyes in his hand. Remind me of that. I don't think he had anything carved in his head.
May I please finish this interview later? I don't feel well. No, I can continue speaking. Just some water, please.
You
know
just
about
said,
the
can you
pigmen.
finish it later?
How they burst out of our shanty, slaughtering every man and woman and child. I saw more die from the stampede and the crush than the creature's hands. Though the ones who did die cut open to birth more of those hideous things. I will pray for from now until the hour of my death. Thomas and I hid until the stampede of men and swine passed and joined a handful of others. Frankowitz and his friends, who claimed to know where Kazuski's stockpile of dynamite was. The old man was holed up in the factory, they said.
Oh,
They
they
would go in and
did it
what
themselves.
the plan was, I cannot guess. Two of them, they were taken by those things before we got there. Women I had shared meals with, torn open with meat hooks, all to get our hands on a pistol and 3 sticks of dynamite. But we took them and headed back towards the factory. This place was still where we had made our home, after all. And we had no intention of seeing those things slaughter us to a man. Those pig creatures were ferocious, but slow-witted. Now that the crowd had escaped or had been slaughtered, navigating around them was easier than it seemed. Though we were almost given away when the sight of hanging bodies or trampled children, or worse, made us sick. No, I can go on. Just some more water and a cigarette. Thank you. Yes. You must have seen how the old man or those creatures had hung the factory walls with bodies. Each one cut open, birthing screaming pigs onto the ground. The building itself straining and shaking, and panels from the roof clattering to the ground. The noise gave us cover until...
That made me think of Ed Gein. I know when the police went to his house, they said they went in his barn, and it was the hollowed out body of a woman he had just killed earlier that day. And I guess because he was also like skinning people and also skinning like dead bodies, because he was making like a skin suit and like making furniture and shit, like skin on like couches and lamps and all type of shit. And he had like stuff in his body parts in the refrigerator and all that. I think they said some was on the stove boiling or something. I don't know what the fuck, but it reminded me of that. They said they went in and they saw it like hollowed out. It's like they were cut open and gutted. They friends and shit, like, and the pigs were spilling
A
out.
handful of us found our way towards its center, where the old man had cleared a circle in the blood and the filth. Before one of the pillars, where he had hung some idol, he was bowing and chanting. It was a word I do not know. I will try to say it. Aeon. 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 The old man spotted my husband first. His expression was one of bafflement. I truly do not think he could understand why anyone would stand against him. But with a flick of his hand,
I'm giving you meat.
faster than Thomas could pull a trigger, I looked away just in time, but in the corner of my eye, I saw him tearing apart like old cloth. We scattered, and I grabbed the dynamite and matches.
He flicked his
Frankowitz drew the pistol, but
tore apart.
a big creature took all 6 shots with its body and closed the distance with him and plunged a meat hook.
Damn.
Where I found the strength, I do not know. But I lit a match and touched it to the dynamite and tossed it. It landed by the pillar some distance from him, and he only laughed. Nothing but meat, I remember him saying as he pointed his hand towards me. And then the dynamite exploded, and the pillar twisted at its base. And the roof tore and buckled, and I brought the entire fucking ceiling of the factory down on that creature's head.
Damn.
The Bureau of Investigation publicized a cover story that the SCP-7115 event was caused by mass hysteria amongst workers. Molson and Company was dissolved in 1909 following the SCP-7115 event. H.H. Molson died in a car accident the same year, an event heavily rumored to have been. The Chicago Daily Courier, having lost its most prominent corporate backer as a result, likewise ceased operations in 1913. To obscure her involvement in the event, Jelena Petroulis was indicted for criminal damage of property, dying due to complications of pneumonia in prison in 1914.
She went to jail.
Due to the cessation of life functions in all SCP-7115-1 instances, SCP-7115-A is presumed neutralized. However, the fact that a non-anomalous human was able to survive the factory building's collapse suggests the possibility of the entity's continued survival. Okay.
I feel like people would know.
I think that about does it for today. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you're all dismissed.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Like, I think you would hear about it because the way they were killing people. Yeah, just go out and just start
I would like to give a special thank you. Cupster, special thank you.
Okay, just did a special. They're just going out just killing people. Like, I know they said because I guess they didn't have the SCP Foundation, but they said the police wasn't doing shit. So, but the thing is, when you see if pig people are running out and just slaughtering people, and then people dying in the stampede from people running, they cutting people open, and new pigs are spilling out. Like, that's not some shit you can just forget and cover up unless you kill everybody. Like, nobody escaped. Which it sounds like some people, at least would have. Cause they just came out, just started attacking indiscriminately, and people were running. I mean, I guess people would be like, someone told them, hey, there's like humanoid pigs that are attacking people around this shanty town, around that factory that's near the shanty town, and cutting people open, and pigs are coming out of them. And then they eating, because they're like, everybody was eating the pigs. Then they start turning, and the pigs start becoming like humanoid. And then the guy who was in charge of eating the pigs. Cause he used to, they just eat raw pig, which is still crazy. I mean, they ain't eating raw pig. But yeah, that story was a trip. Damn. And I felt that when that woman was talking, like I felt that she was like, and it sounded like he said the dude waved his hand, and she said that she looked, and then like her husband, I guess, just exploded. The skin like flew off him or something. That did not go anywhere near what I thought it was. I thought it was, like I said, it was gonna be just like, I mean, I guess technically it is made out of people because they killing people and pigs are falling out of them. Then they start using the pigs to kill other people and breed more pigs. That shit was crazy. I hope y'all enjoyed my reaction. And one of you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're here. Hit that bell, let you know if I upload videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.